Welcome to the triple stormy seas of crypto winter, recession, and hyperinflation. We've just been through a period of pretty calm weather. Sure, it was capped off at the end there by the global medical situation that impacted a lot of different components of our economies, but we tried to hack our way out of that with our favorite modern monetary trick, money printer go brrrr. Like drunken sailors who are allowed to eat nothing but doughnuts and drink nothing but rum for an entire weekend. Now we're suffering from the hangover of inflation and the lethargy of recession. For all of us, we can also stack the cold frostbite of crypto winter on top of those other ills. Now the hard part is staying in the harbor, rebuilding our health, and weathering the storm. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss news out of Jay Powell and the Fed, a new way to hate both Facebook and crypto venture capitalists simultaneously. You no longer have to do it sequentially. You can now do it at the same time. Some news out of one of our big Cardano DeFi platforms, and Cardano Clothes, if you can believe it, Cardano Clothes tracked on the blockchain. If you've ever been in a storm that was so bad you thought there was a non-insignificant chance that Mother Nature might finally get you, or if you've been finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Also, the live stream to celebrate 400 episodes is going to be this Saturday. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're nowhere near either of those two time zones, that probably means nothing to you. That's 6 hours prior to our normal time. So 6 hours prior to when these videos normally come out, that's when the live stream is going to happen on Saturday. I know that's a very different time slot, but I've had so many people complain to me because I always do those at the exact same time. I've had so many people complain that there was no possible way for them to go to the live streams. So this time we're going to do it in that different time slot, 6 hours before the normal time. Well, today was the day that our main man, the gray-haired puppet master, or puppet, depending on your perspective, Jay Powell, let us know that they would be hiking rates once again by 75 basis points. That is a 0.75, 3/4 of a percentage point hike to the federal funds rate. So this is something that they haven't done since 1994. And they haven't done it twice in a row in the modern history of the Federal Reserve. That's how bad inflation is right now. They haven't had to have a 75 basis point increase since 94. And they've never done it twice in a row in the modern history of the Federal Reserve. We're dealing with huge inflation concerns. It's not like they're mildly concerned about inflation. They're extremely concerned about inflation. So much so that Jay Powell has said the biggest risk to the economy is persistent inflation, not an economic downturn. He's straight up telling you there that if they have to choose between inflation and recession, they're going to choose recession. This means that the biggest question on a lot of people's minds right now is whether or not we can still have a soft landing. What do they mean by that? The interwebs tell us that a soft landing in the business cycle is the process of an economy shifting from growth to slow growth to potentially flat as it approaches but avoids a recession, usually caused by attempts to slow down inflation. So this is the question of whether or not we can hike rates enough to slow down inflation but not kick off a recession. The political question that's popped up is how we're going to define a recession, because no sitting White House administration wants to have a recession on their watch. So there have been we'll call it debate to remain politically neutral. We'll call it debate, recent debate about what a recession actually is. We're going to get the GDP numbers tomorrow. We're going to find out what the GDP growth was for Q2 tomorrow morning. And this is important to the White House. They've already started saying that a recession is not what most people think it is. Most people, if you ask the average person who has a definition for a recession, they're going to tell you it's when you have 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. The White House, of course, is arguing, no. A recession is called by the National Bureau of Economic Research, and they look at a bunch of different economic factors. But again, if you ask the average person, they're going to say a recession is 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. That would be contraction. You can tell from this lukewarm headline that nobody really knows what that GDP number is going to look like. The economy is expected to have barely grown last quarter, and it may have contracted. This is kind of like the crypto TA way of doing this. My base case is that we go up from here, but my other base case is that we go down from here. Jerome Powell, of course, said today that he does not believe we're currently in a recession. However, the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, notice, also the Federal Reserve, thinks we will have negative growth print tomorrow. They say the GDP Now model estimate for real GDP growth, seasonally adjusted annual rate, is the second quarter of 2022 is negative 1.2%. So even within the Federal Reserve, we have Jay Powell saying we are not currently in a recession, and we have the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta saying the print tomorrow will be negative GDP growth. So, I mean, if you want to get technical, maybe they're both right. Maybe we're not yet in a recession because that number hasn't come out yet tomorrow. But of course, if the NBER wants to do the White House some favors, of course, they won't actually call a recession. Going back to our original article, we find out in the last 11 tightening cycles, the Fed has only successfully avoided recession 3 times. So the last 11 times they did this, when they had to raise rates, they only avoided recession 3 out of the 11 times. And during each of those cycles, inflation was lower than it is today. This strategist says, a soft landing feels like a long shot from here. Fed policy cannot directly impact food or energy inflation, while rate hikes so far have done little to slow inflation. Basically, she's saying inflation. Analysts at BlackRock said, we think a soft landing is unlikely. Central banks today face sharp trade-offs between growth and inflation. We expect the Fed to change course only next year when the economic effects of rate rises become clear. So it's looking like the cards are stacked against this soft landing idea. While all of that's going on, even the Washington Post wants to remind us we're also in crypto winter. Crypto winter is not so much sad as it is natural. In order for there to be lions, a whole bunch of gazelles need to have really bad days. Last year we were the lion. This year we're the gazelles. No one should really be surprised by crypto winter. Every 210,000 blocks, the Bitcoin block reward gets cut in half. We've seen this pattern before. In November 2012, block reward gets cut in half. 1 year later, November 2013, we have all-time highs, followed by crypto winter. July 2016, block reward is cut in half. 1.5 years later, December 2017, all-time highs, followed by crypto winter. May 2020, block reward cut in half. 1 year later, 11 months later, April 2021, all-time highs. And now we find ourselves here, crypto winter. The point I'm trying to make is that these are all cycles we've seen before. We get a little bit too much inflation. This time around, way too much inflation. We start hiking rates. We hike them a little bit too much. And 8 out of 11 times, we get a recession. In crypto, the block reward gets cut in half. We have parabolic highs. And then we have crypto winter. These are all things we've seen before. They look a little bit different every time, but it's pretty much the same pattern. There are a lot of reasons why the macro events happening right now are quite a bit different, maybe in the past, but this isn't totally unlike things we've seen in the past. And it seems like just like in the past, the best thing we can do is just weather the storm and wait until better times. While you're busy weathering the storm, you might want to know about this. Maybe you thought you hated Facebook. I guess we're supposed to call them Meta now. Maybe you thought you hated Meta. Maybe you thought you hated crypto VCs. But did you know you can now hate them simultaneously, for they have sired two bastard children together. They're called Aptos and Sui. I think I love the Sui one more because Sui is by Miston Labs. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's better that they have, a nearly unpronounceable name for the blockchain, or that Miston Labs is spelled MYST. It's like it's all so digital. It's all so crypto. It's like it's almost like it shouldn't even be spoken. It should only be read. Sui by Miston Labs. If I tried to tell my friends that I was starting a company that was named either Aptos or Miston, they would instantly kick me directly in the nuts. Just on principle. Sui and Aptos are both L1s. So you probably remember that Meta had this thing called Libra. It was going to be this permissioned blockchain. And right from the start, they were getting a bunch of static from policymakers in Washington, and then they changed the name to Diem, and they got even more static from Washington, and it all just kind of like faded into nothingness. But they did have a programming language for Diem. This programming language was called Move, and Move is going to be the programming language underpinning both Sui and Aptos. Interestingly, this thread says that Aptos is also founded by former Meta, that is Facebook, employees. So the other interesting thing, so both of these L1s, they've kind of risen to take the mantle from Solana, as near as I can tell. The other interesting thing, so here you can see a bunch of information on this Move programming language. This is like great. It's like if it didn't work for Diem, surely it'll work for Aptos and Sui. Although I think Diem/Libra's biggest problems were regulatory and, maybe not even related to anything technical. But don't know that for a fact. I did not review any of the anything technical about Diem. I'm just guessing that their biggest obstacles were more policy oriented. So the funniest part, though, is if you come all the way down here in the thread, you'll notice this is buried deep in this thread for good reason. Here are the VCs. So they're very excited to announce Aptos is one of the most well-funded projects in crypto. They announced a $200 million funding round in March, led by A16Z. That's Andreessen Horowitz. If you don't know, the reason why it's called A16Z is because they didn't think that anybody would be able to spell Andreessen correctly because it has so many E's. So they just put the first letter of Andreessen and the last letter of Horowitz, and then they abbreviated the 16 letters in between with 16, A16Z. But that's not the funny part. The funny part is who's included in the raise. It's all of the usual suspects, including 3AC. They're so proud of their $200 million raise, and it includes 3AC. It's kind of like you want to make a list of people with really good judgment. 3AC was involved. Certainly, those guys have excellent judgment, as history has told us. So they go on to tell us that they've also raised an additional 150 million, and this round included a bunch of the same kinds of VCs, as you can see. And they brag, for comparison, Sol raised only 25 million before launch compared to Aptos at 350 million. I don't know about everybody else, but so far everything I'm seeing about Aptos and Sui, I don't know anything about the architecture of these blockchains, how they're going to operate. I don't know anything about them, but so far, just based on the characters involved, it seems like just some more of that Solana style VC crypto business. Meanwhile, back in Cardano, the land of the good guys, we're starting to see some things we've been waiting a long time for. like our big DeFi protocols, getting to the point where they'll be able to launch once Vossel comes around. Here's Indigo saying the Indigo protocol has officially reached feature completion. This achievement is a crucial step in our progression toward mainnet launch. And they've got a nice little article here you can go through to find out all about the features that have been included in their platform. This is good news. We're seeing a little lining up of this this Vossel timeline and these big platforms. I mean, I think there's a certain number of DeFi platforms in Cardano that people are anxiously awaiting. I think of Indigo and Liquid and Jed, Ardana. I mean, Maladex. Um, we've got a whole bunch. I mean, I'm leaving out a lot, but we've got a bunch of high profile projects we've been waiting for a long time. And I'm hoping at least over the next several months, we're actually going to see the launch of all these protocols. It's going to be weird when they've all launched. It's almost like we're going to have to find new things to focus on. And on the tail of those, we'll probably see the launches, at least some early launches of the metaverse projects. What happens after all these DeFi projects have launched and all the metaverse projects have launched? What comes next? Just more of the same? Or will we have moved on to something entirely different? I don't know. Finally, it looks like we now have Cardano Clothes. No, I'm not talking about clothes for your avatar for the metaverse. These are actual real world clothes. Origin Thread says Cardano's first blockchain backed clothing. Scan the NFC tag on your shirt and view a video of its creation and fully transparent on chain sourcing information. The future of clothing is on sale now. We get a little look. Looks like it's a very colorful shirt. Looks nice. Let's go to the website and check this out. $200. Whoa. My wallet is over there pouring itself a whiskey and silently weeping. I can see little tiny wallet tears rolling down its wallet cheeks, just silently weeping. Hasn't even taken a sip of the whiskey yet. It's a little taken aback by this pricing. I'm not saying this shirt is not worth it. And it looks like it's hand printed, cut and sewn in London, hand printed in India. It's probably worth every penny. And it looks like it's a limited quantity. 36 shirts are available only for the token holders of their tokens. And then there's a public sale of 25 additional shirts. So it's a little bit limited edition. But it looks like this is not the kind of, this shirt does not seem to be meant for mass consumption. This is for a pretty niche audience. And even though the price point is, a little bit higher than a lot of people want to spend, some people would be very happy to drop the 200 for this organic cotton shirt that's hand printed and cut and sewn in London. But it is cool. We've got even if it's slightly highly priced clothing, we have got Cardano clothing that is on the blockchain. I believe there's there's both an NFC tag and there's I think it's both RFID and there's a QR code and an NFC tag identifier. I think this is great. This kind of stuff is the kind of the provenance use case where you can show the consumer how their good was produced, where it actually came from, the supply chain of the materials used in the good. This is something we've talked about for a long time. So it's good to see this happening on the blockchain. There's been some action in this use case with the Georgian wines and I think a few other things, but it's good to see a product actually for sale here that people can buy if they want to. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.